Laughter then. How important is laughter in your life? And I think I'm going to ask you also in your coaching, because I wonder whether you use that as a route through some people's blockages as well.
Um, Again, it's funny because I don't. I, I would say I'm a really naturally positive person, and so I'm quite a joyful person. But I wouldn't. I'm not necessarily a joker. So when I think of laughter, I think of jokes, and I think of some of our great friends who just every time we see them have got a new joke, and I'm like, oh, here we go. And you can never tell whether they're going to be serious or not with what they say next. But I think being able to see the positive in life and in situations makes a really big difference. So from that perspective, positivity is key to me, and I know how important it is to me because it's probably one of my values as well. You know, when others are consistently negative, I can find it challenging. But obviously, if someone's wanting to work with me, it's for me to help them reframe that negative mindset to move towards more positive thoughts and language.
Yeah. So can I ask you then about toxic positivity? Because there's a lot of people saying that you can't just say think positively. So how would you address that in someone who's sort of rebuffing the positivity mindset?
Perhaps that's so for me that what comes up is emotions. So if we say you should always be positive, that's negating the fact that we do experience all different types of emotion. So I would be working with someone or anyone that I'm having that conversation with as it's really important in life to recognize what you're feeling and experiencing at any given time. But again, a good example is if something bad is happening or you're in a state of fear or anxiety, imagine it's like when you would put your hands on a really hot stove or something really hot. You'd pull your hand off it, wouldn't you? You wouldn't keep your hand on that.
Yeah.
Who would do that? So negative emotions are a bit like that. So when something happens to us and we experience something that makes us whatever, sad, angry, upset, it is important to notice those emotions and to to accept them. But it's also, you can ask yourself at that point, how useful is it? Do I really want to sit in these negative emotions, or what do I want to do instead? And that might sound like, oh, it's not that easy. We're not talking now about very complex emotions like grief, which again, you would understand that. I'm not going to say, okay, so someone has passed away, you've had that opportunity to have that emotion, you can move on now.
Yeah.
But we are talking about negative thinking. So two people can always experience something very differently. Maybe let's think of crashing a car. Nobody gets hurt, but you crash your car. You can think, that's not a great thing, it's going to cost me lots of money and my car's all mashed up. If you looked at mine outside, my husband are listening, my car's got a big hole inside of it. But what is the point in me spending days and weeks going on and on about that story, worrying about, I didn't get hurt, no one else got hurt, it is going to cost money to fix it. But there's no value in sitting in that negative emotion. So I guess toxic positivity was your question. It's about recognizing there are times when we always have a choice, whether we sit in a negative emotion or we can shift to something more positive. Because how does it, if I ask you to feel sad or think about something sad or say sad words, you're going to feel sad. If you speak with language and thoughts that's more positive, that's how you're going to feel.
Yeah.
So it's a choice to shift between the two, but always acknowledging the emotions that and the experiences that we have in life.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I don't know if I'm probably making a sweeping generalisation, but I think the younger generation are quite fixated in a negative thought loop. I see it in my daughter and sort of her peer group that there's a lot of overthinking, but it's almost a badge. They wear it as a badge. I'm an overthinker, and they are constantly going over those things. but it is possible to change your mindset, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I'm just reading a book by Dr. Tara Swart. I don't know if you've heard of her, The Source, but she's a neuroscientist looking at neuroplasticity
Yeah.
in the brain, and she's saying it's possible for anyone to change the wiring, whether it's a long-held belief, even if you're neurodivergent. The key element is you've got to want to change.
Yeah. You can 100% change, but it's, if you imagine, if you've been thinking and doing something for 20 years of your life, it's not going to be easy to shift that just like that overnight.
Yeah.
And a great example is going to the gym, isn't it? You wouldn't join the gym and a day after being in the gym go, suddenly I'm really super fit and toned. Well, your brain is exactly the same. You need to exercise it into the direction that you want it to go. And if you stop exercising, it will go back to the roots that have been very ingrained. So you can imagine it's almost like a Y shape. So a message comes along. If it's always been going on, let's call it the negative path. That's the most ingrained path, and that's how your brain wires itself. But if you keep working at more positive, whatever it might be, new habits, new ways of thinking, that's how. So it's like if you wanted to, talking about the gym again, you've decided you want to get fit, you have to put in a routine and you have to make it easy for yourself to be able to develop that new habit. Well, thinking's the same way. We put, it's small steps to build on shifting your thinking and therefore shifting your emotions on a daily basis.
Yeah. And it does take work, and that's another thing social media is probably bad for, is quick fix. This one life hack will change your life forever. But it's not. It's a daily battle sometimes to override that well-worn path, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And of course, you might be trying really hard to make changes in your own life, but the reality is we're surrounded by whatever we're surrounded by. And realistically, some people will be in a very challenging environment, or they'll be with people that are maybe very negative. And so I totally understand that it's not necessarily an easy journey. And we often say that, think about who and what you're interacting with. So you're talking about children, and I know it's very difficult to say to a child, spend less time on social media, but it will have a positive impact because it'll allow them to come away from whatever's influencing them negatively or positively and discover something else. So what you're surrounded by is influencing your behavior and your mood, and you can make your job for yourself a lot harder unless you also seek sometimes to change your environment.
Yeah. Well, that's the classic thing of you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with, isn't it? So, sometimes you do have to withdraw to be able to have that reset.
Yeah, it's not always easy, but
got to try.
And we nearly always got a choice.
Yeah. So, when you're doing you do a lot of seminars, and public speaking, motivational speaking.
Not loads of it, but I do enjoy being in front of people. I'm normally, funnily enough, even though I said, how am I going to be on a podcast? I'm very comfortable standing in front of 100 people and talking about different subjects that, that are all to do with coaching, well-being, performance. I do my own stuff, which is, webinars, and my own programs. So I'll deliver material like that. And as I said, I'm really passionate about education. So I've been in and out of schools, whether that be with the teachers and the staff and the leadership teams, to also standing in front of whole groups of year 10s and year 6s and year 7s. And
the toughest crowd.
Yeah, really. Actually, now that you ask about bravery, I did say the day I did, I think it was a year 7 or 8. It was a boys' school, so there was about 200 boys in one room, and I held their attention for 1 hour, and I got them at given points to close their eyes so that all of them, with the exception of a few, stopped and you know, did some mindfulness and closed their eyes, and it was all around visualizing their future and then creating vision boards for themselves. And it probably was both a brave but a very proud moment. I thought, that's the toughest audience I'm ever going to have.
No mean feat, definitely. So do you use humour in those situations as a way through, or is that not your style?
I think that's probably fair to say. I can't think now how I would use humour, but everything's light and how do I say it? So to pull that audience together, what was really important was to make sure the audience felt part of it.
Yeah.
And so whenever I do any work that's more than one person as well, I'm very interactive with the audience, and I want them to share. That's not always comfortable for everyone to share, but it does mean that it's not just my voice, is it? And people are hearing real stories or real other perspectives, like we were talking about, listening to others. And so I bring everyone in the room to share their story, their experiences. Maybe they've had a question to look at, what's come up for you. So that's, I guess, how I hold that room.
Yeah. Now, we did say before we started, you said you might not have a joke. So, shall I put you on the spot, or shall we just gloss over the joke
genuinely
question?
can't. Apart from the classics of why did the chicken cross the road, that's how bad my jokes are.
Well,
really.
That's generally has been the standard of all the other podcasts. They've all been what I call dad jokes, so they've all been quite daft. So yeah, we won't put you on the spot and make you come up with
I
one.
appreciate that.